Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the IJS Webinar for Coaches. Tonight we're going to be covering singles for the 2014 to 2015 season. Today's presentation is brought to you by the PSA, as well as the U.S. Figure Skating Coaches Committee. Next slide, please. So first we're just going to cover a few webinar logistics. You may be familiar with this slide from before. Again, all of the attendees are on mute. Only the panelists are unmuted, but that doesn't mean you have to stay quiet. You can still enter questions during the webinar by typing in your questions into the question box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. You notice there's a blue screen. The window is in the bottom window on the right. And the lovely Katie McCarter will collect those questions, and we'll be gathering those, and if there's time at the end of today's webinar, we will try to address those questions. Because we do have a lot of material to cover today, that if we don't have time, no worries, we'll answer those Q&As and we'll post today's webinar as well as a Q&A summary online for review. And that'll be on the members only website, which is usfsaonline.org, where you enter your member and account information to log in. And remember, there'll be other webinars as well. We had a music webinar earlier, so this is all part of the Coaches Committee webinar series that we wanted to share with you. And also just a quick little plug, don't forget to check out the Coaches Committee webpage. So you can type in coachescommittee.com, it'll take you there. You can also find us on the usfigureskating.com main page under the Coaches tab. And it's an online resource for coaches with everything is in one place. So whether it's coaches registration, links that you're looking for, or ICE Network news and PSA events or rules and rule changes, everything is located in one spot. Additionally, there are links to the IJS checklist, which is something that's new for this season, and that's brought to you from our friends in the Singles Committee. So the IJS checklist is there for you to download, and it's done by level. Next slide, please. And I'm honored to introduce our wonderful panelists for today. First, we have Gail Tanger, the National Vice Chair of Technical Rules for the Technical Panel Committee. We have Dana Graham, the Chair of the Technical Panel Committee. Libby Scanlon, Vice Chair of Rules for Singles on the Technical Panel Committee. Philip DeGuglielmo, Vice Chair for Singles, the Coaches Committee. And I'm Alex Chang, the Chair of the Coaches Committee. And with that, I'd like to hand it off to Philip DeGuglielmo.
Hello. This year's current documents that you want to have at your ready for checking over things would be this year's ISU First Aid Handbook. It's the Technical Panel Handbook. As Alex said, it's available under Technical Info tab on the USFSA website. You'll want to have copies of the ISU Communications number 1861, 1874, and 1884. The U.S. Figure Skating Well-Balanced Program Charts. Those are very helpful with figuring out repeat rules that we're going to be going over later. Also, the Technical Notifications 136, 155, and 157 are the most recent ones we'll be talking about. And also the ISU Q&As, which are also available on the Single Pairs Technical Info page. The first elements that we're going to be talking about are the leveled step sequence. Part of the change this year is that the wording has been changed to use of body movements for 1/3 of the pattern. The actual wording is any movement of the arms and or head and or torso and or hips and or legs that have an effect on the balance of the main body core. That's your key line right there, effect on balance. So it has been actually expanded. It used to be, didn't include hips or legs. Now it does. So it should be an easier feature to attain. The next element we'll be going over is the choreographic sequence, and Libby will take over.
Yes, I'd like to add a little bit to that upper body or the body movement concept, requiring a third of the total pattern. And a couple of the step sequence features 2 and feature 3 upper body movement, or body movement, excuse me. You must take into account the total pattern skated. So make sure that your skaters aren't just taking in a linear type measurement under their advice for 1/3. It needs to be 1/3 of the total pattern. On to the choreographic sequence, senior ladies and men, senior men's free skate. The choreographic sequence consists of any kind of movements like steps, turns, spirals, arabesques, spread eagles, Ina Bowers, hydroblading, and any jumps with a maximum of 2 revolutions. That's new this year. The step sequence can include up to 2 revolution jumps. And spins, which more accurately is described as spinning movements. Any type of spinning movement with less than 3 revolutions is also included. Listed elements included in the choreo sequence will not be called and will not occupy a box. The pattern is not restricted, but the sequence must be clearly visible. Next. The technical panel identifies the sequence which begins with the first skating movement and is considered concluded with the preparation to the next element if the choreographic sequence is not the last element of the program. That's something that is a major change for this year, in that the choreographic sequence can be placed anywhere within the frame of the program, not necessarily after the step sequence. Next.
The choreographic sequence, it can include a jump with more than 2, or if the choreographic sequence has a jump with more than 2 revolutions is called, then the choreo sequence will end. Also, if there is a spin with 3 or more revolutions within that choreo sequence, the choreo sequence will also end. One other thing that is that in the senior single free skating, the order of the step sequence and the choreographic sequence is optional, whereas last year the choreo sequence had to happen after the step sequence. This year, the skater has the option. Do we have any more comments on the choreo sequence?
There's one other change for this year, and that is that the spiral is not mandatory within the sequence. So you'll see many of them, of course, and we hope we do, but it is not required any longer in the steps in the choreo sequence.
Okay, we can go on to spins, and we'll have Dana Graham.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to get started with the spins. We have a number of changes to the spin level features, and in fact a couple of new features completely. So this is the first one. Difficult change of position on the same foot. So a change from one basic position to a different basic position without establishing a non-basic position on the way from one to the other. And it requires significant strength, skill, and control, and having an impact on the ability to execute the position change. So key there is that that non-basic position in between the 2 basics is never held. The motion needs to be continuous. So continuous movement must be performed throughout the change. It may not include a jump to execute the change. That would constitute spin feature number 3, jump within a spin. And the basic positions before and after the change of position must be held for 2 revolutions. Next.
Okay, next. And next we're going to talk about other changes in features, the difficult entrance in particular. The entrance into spin is defined as the preparation immediately preceding the spin and may include the beginning phase of a spin, the entrance must have a significant impact on balance. In order to get anything difficult, you will see this term used, significant impact on the balance, whether it's into spins or positions, and control and execution of that spin. The intended spin position must be reached without hesitation or delay and must be held for 2 revolutions. This position can be basic or for spin combinations only, non-basic. The major change here is that back entry that we saw last year is no longer a feature, but a difficult entry can lead in to a backward spin and receive the feature. Next.
This is Libby again. We're going to show you an example of a difficult change of position feature. We are watching a combination spin with a change of foot, and on the second side of the spin, we'll see the difficult change of position. We have the upright layback position melting right down into the sit. Well, we're kind of skipping around on that tape, but imagine that it will with full revolution in each one of those positions. Let's play it one more time. So we watch the second half of the spin, and we're a little sticky on our tape here, but imagine 2 revs in each of these final 2 positions. The layback after the camel here, we will see it is 1, 2, and Jason just kind of melts right down in that sit forward, which really can constitute requiring strength and continuous movement from one position to the other position. Next. Now we have an example of a difficult entrance. This example is going to show us a difficult conversion of an explosive vertical movement of a split jump directly into the rotational movement of the camel spin. So here, split jump right into the camel position. This is a plan that will be sometimes yes, sometimes no. Certainly the way, if you watched Max in real time doing this, we certainly it could be considered a difficult entrance. If in fact the execution of this there was hesitation after the split jump and a nice slow right inside 3 turn into the spin, that would change that call, in my opinion. So it's all about the execution of the plan that you have to achieve the difficult entrance. Next. We now in this spin show a difficult entrance of a different sort. We have this young lady doing a difficult entrance of a rotational way of a forward twizzle, and I'm hoping it's not sticky on this tape either, because this is about execution also, as all of these entries are, and the free leg forward and a twizzle and right into that camel spin would certainly be considered a difficult entrance. And as I said, unfortunately, if you saw this tape in real time, you would understand that twizzle was quickly, rapidly executed and took you right into, without hesitation, the camel position. So that could be definitely considered a difficult entrance. And then let's look at this one more time, and we have the potential of a difficult, no, back up please. Show this one more time. We also have a difficult change of position concept on the second side. So we've got the second side with the sit forward. Oh, that's the jump within the spin, so let's wait till we get there. And we're in a sit forward position for 2, and we rise right to the upright forward position. As I said, real time has a whole different perspective, but that concept could also be considered a difficult change of position. I want to emphasize the importance of not only just having the plan of the difficult change of position or entrance, but it's really critical how it is executed. Okay. We have one more example next. The spins with the difficult entrance and flying entry. If the entrance is difficult and flying at the same time, only the flying feature can be awarded. So anytime an entrance there's a difficult entry that leads into any type of fly, the difficult entrance is, the fly is the only thing that will be considered or awarded. The difficult entrance to a regular flying camel is not counted as a level feature, and a difficult entrance in this case is not considered as used, as in the case above. So you always have the opportunity to use that difficult entrance in a later spin. Let's look at an example of this. We once again have the attempt at a difficult entry, the split falling leaf, the stars into the fly, and in this situation, the only thing we would be considering is the fly. Next.
Okay, so other changes in features. Spin combination with all three basic positions executed on the second foot. If the spin combination, in order to be counted as a level feature, all three basic positions must be executed on that second foot. This feature can be awarded only if its execution is not interrupted by a change of foot and cannot be awarded after the second change of foot. So all three of those positions need to be achieved on the second foot, not the third or the fourth. Next.
So we have the difficult variation of flying position, feature 11, in flying spins and spins with a flying entry. The criteria this year seems to, by its very language, been kind of heightened. It's only will be granted if the flying position is really difficult. They have offered, there's been examples offered that in a flying sit spin, the entry, the total sit position in the air with the height and total movement control. We know that the total sit position in the air means that the upper part of the takeoff leg must come to full sit position, which is parallel to the ice. So that is really being scrutinized this year in terms of flying sit spin. An open butterfly position in the air, taking the sit position immediately after landing, which is, of course, means within the first 2 revolutions and then held for 2 revolutions. And then in a flying camel spin, the entry, the clear butterfly entrance, almost split position in the air, or almost split position in the air. So the difference between a step over and a really difficult variation has, in my opinion, kind of the bar. So that fly feature must be really difficult. Normal flying camel does not block a possibility of counting a difficult flying entry as a feature later on. Next. Oh, I'm on this one too. Okay, change of foot executed by jump and jump within a spin without changing feet. While these are not new features this year, the criteria has been a bit elevated also. Both of these features require 2 revs in the basic before and after the jump. The difference this year is that they may start from a basic or a non-basic position. It had always been from a basic to a basic. Now it is valid if it is in a non-basic position for 2 revolutions before the jump, and then it must land in a basic position. The jump has no requirements in terms of specific air position, but it has to be a clear jump. We have to see some air underneath that jump. It's considered as a level feature only when it requires significant strength. So in other words, those little, I call them hiccup type jumps, they really are not going to cut the mustard for these 2 features. Next.
Okay, next we're going to talk about the V1 and the V2. That stands for value. So the value 1 or a value 2. As we applied here, this would be for a flying spin. A fly spin is a spin with one position and no change of foot. So flying spins with no change of foot and only one position have two requirements. They must have a clear, visible jump, and a basic landing position must be within the first 2 revolutions after the landing from the moment the position is initially reached, and it must be held for 2 after that landing. So if it does not have that visible jump, and we can't really see the air in the jump, it's going to get a V1. If the position is not attained within 2 revolutions, like you don't get down into the prescribed position, and it's not held for 2, that would be V2. Spins with a V1 or V2 will receive credit for all features. So they can still get the features in that spin. It is the visible jump and the landing position within 2 and held for 2 that control that V1 and V2 in this particular spin. But the rest of the features in the spin, the camel, forward, sideward, upward, can still be attained. Next, continuing on the V1 and V2, if either in the short program or in the free skating program, an obvious step over instead of a jump is performed in the short program, a junior lady would attempt, but does not attain the position in the air, the spin will be marked with one of the V1 or V2, and the entrance cannot be considered as a feature. If in the short program a junior lady doesn't even attempt to reach a prescribed air position, the flying spin will have no value. So that just goes away. It has no value. There's no fly. But other than that, the flying position, if it's required in the spin, has to be attained or a V1, as in the short program. And it's a feature in the free skating program. So that is dealt with differently. It's not a requirement as in the short program. Next.
Okay, so now we'll talk about the other element requirement for spins, and this applies to any spin with a change of foot. So it could be a spin in one position with a change of foot or a spin combination with a change of foot. At least one basic position on each foot is required. So if that requirement is not met, then a V1 would be applied. And note that in a spin with a change of foot, there's only an option for a V1. There's not an option for a V2. That only applies to the flying spin that Gail just spoke about. So V1 would be the greatest penalty for any spin with a change of foot. Next. All right, so the base values of spins with either a V1 or a V2 are listed in the course. They're listed in the corresponding columns in the scale of values in ISU Communication 1884. So if a V1 is applied to a spin, it would be given approximately 70% of the original base value, and if a V2 is applied, in the case of flying spins, it would be approximately 50% of the original base value. Next.
Next are the position issues within spins. I want to just add one thing to the spin requirements for the flying spin. In the combination spin, now that we're going to be talking about combination spin, if in fact there is a flying entry, those spin requirements of A and B, visible jump and down within 2 and held for 2, you will not get a V1 or a V2 if those requirements are not met in a fly in a combination spin. So that reiterates what Gail was talking about, the definition of flying spin. Moving on to combination spins with positions. This year we are identifying the basic positions achieved within a combination spin. A spin combination with and without change of foot, which includes only 2 basic positions, will have a lower base value in comparison with a spin combination with all 3 basic positions. Makes sense. The corresponding base values are listed in the scale of values. They are listed in 2 separate categories of combination spins with 2 positions, combination spins with 3 positions. Next. The way this will look on your protocol sheet is as follows. If you have achieved 2 positions and you've achieved a level 4 with getting 4 features awarded, you will have a CCOSP 2P, meaning 2 positions, 4 meaning level 4. If you have a combination spin without a change of foot with the same concept going on, you will have the COSP 2P level 4. In a combination spin with a change of foot, if you have 3 positions, you will be coded accordingly with the CCOSP 3P level 4. It's important to remember, or maybe it's something to consider, that the 2 position spins will have a 70% base value reduction. So you want to try to make sure that your skaters are doing all 3 basic positions in their spins. Next. For the purpose of a well-balanced program, spin combinations with 2 and 3 positions are considered as the same spin. So it's not going to be considered a different element code necessarily, because the CCOSP is the code. So any combo spin with only 1, also really important to note, any combo spin of any sort with or without change of foot with only 1 basic position is no value. So that does not lie within the framework of definition of combo spin, meaning 2 basic positions must be achieved within the spin. Only 1, it's going to be a no value spin, not according to a combo requirement. Next.
All right, this year the ISU has just slightly changed the definition of the 3 difficult variations of a camel spin. We have camel forward, camel sideways, and camel upward. Camel forward is shoulder line parallel to the ice. Camel sideways is shoulder line twisted to vertical. And then camel upward is shoulder line twisted more than a vertical position. So it's just a little bit, used to be 180 degrees, now it's just more than that vertical for the camel upward.
I'd like to add just something about the difficult variations in the calls on the sit side versus sit forward. And technical panels are really advised to call the difficult variation in the position it is closest to. We see a lot of sit sides that are actually not sideways, far more to the front. So I want to caution you as coaches to, if you're trying to attain the sit side and the sit front, to be fairly deliberate in the position that you're using with that free leg. Okay. U.S. specific rules for intermediate, short, and free program. The combination spin and the combination spin with change of foot, as we said before, the change of position is required for these spins to be given value. What also is special, as opposed to just novice and above, is that the 8 revolution feature can be awarded once per spin if executed in a different basic position or in a different difficult variation. The V1 and V2 rules do apply to intermediate, short, and free programs. Next. In the juvenile levels, our U.S. specific rules are that in the COSP and the CCOSP, again, the change of position is required. The V1 rule applies in the combo spin, as was noted earlier, if there is not a basic position on one of the feet. 8 revolutions can be awarded once per spin if executed in a different basic position or in a different difficult variation. The spin in one position without a change of foot will continue to receive a minimum level base if in fact a basic position is not achieved. In these juvenile spins, the V1 and V2 rules also apply. Next.
Okay, panel, we're going to be moving on to jumps. Do we have any other comments on spins while we are wrapping up the spins? Okay, so we'll go on to jumps. So we're going to talk about jump repetition first. For junior and senior specifically, any double jump, including the double axel, cannot be included more than twice in total in a singles free program. Also, only 2 quadruple or triple jumps may be repeated, and they can be as the solo jump or part of a combination or sequence. If both executions are as solo jumps, the second of these solo jumps will be marked with the sign plus rep and will receive 70% of its original base value. So that used to be called plus seek, but now it's going to be called plus rep, so it won't take away a possibility of a combination or sequence later on for that skater. If we go to the next slide, we have an example of how this would look on a protocol. You can see element number 8 is triple Lutz plus rep. It has received the 70% of the regular triple Lutz value, and here in this example you can see that they have received that reduced value. Okay, next slide.
Okay, so along that same line, following the same concept, we have the repeat rules for the levels juvenile, intermediate, and novice. So if, according to the jump repeat rules for specific levels, so it's really important to look at your well-balanced program sheets, when 2 executions of a jump are allowed, and one of those must be in combo or sequence, if they both end up being executed as solo jumps, for example, in novice ladies, if they do 2 double axels, but don't do either of those in a combination, then the second one would be given the plus rep, the repeat sign. So this applies not to jumps that, we know double jumps can't be repeated more than once, so the maximum of 2, but with this restricted group of jumps where the second attempt must be part of a jump combination or sequence, that's when the plus rep is applied. And the benefit of this is that it then doesn't take one of the combination boxes. So it is given approximately 70% of the base value, but then a third combination could be executed following the second of these 2 jumps. So definitely refer to the free skating requirements chart so you know exactly which jumps the plus rep applies to.
I'll just pipe in for a second here. I think that the upside of this plus rep, while it does give a 70% ding to the jump, it does not block the box for a future combination or sequence. In the past, we have called the repetitions a plus sequence, at which it was giving it an 80% base value, but also blocking the box for a future one. So there is still the opportunity for a skater to do a combination or sequence after a repeat this year. So that's kind of an upside to that.
Right. Thank you, Libby. All right, and in the short programs, for all levels, jumps which do not satisfy the requirements, including wrong number of revolutions, will have no value, but will block a jumping box if one is empty. So this, remember, only applies to the short program. If a combination of 2 double jumps is not allowed, for example, in the senior ladies and men or junior men, the jump with the lesser value will not count if 2 double jumps is executed in the combination. If we go to the next slide. In novice and intermediate, the same rule applies. Jumps that do not satisfy the requirements, wrong number of revolutions in the short program will have no value. We're going to see a number of examples of this, so I think we can move on to the next slide. All right, so solo jumps not according to requirements, intermediate and novice. If I get my short program chart out, for the solo jump, it must be a double or triple for intermediate and novice. So if a single jump is executed, that would be given no value at those levels. At the junior level, a single axel or a single jump for the solo jump would be given no value. You would see an asterisk next to those jumps. And at the senior level, a single axel or a single or a double jump for the solo jump would be given no value. So that's where you'll see the asterisks come after those jumps. Again, we'll see examples of these codes coming up.
Okay, jump combination rotation requirements. Short program for all levels have combination rotation requirements. If both jumps satisfy only one part of those requirements, the jump with the lower value will be asterisk. So you can, if you're talking a double flip versus a single toe, obviously the single toe is taken out. That's the asterisk one. It is on the value of the jump, not the execution of the jump. So it's the value of the jump that determines what jump would meet that rotational requirement. Next, here we have an example of rotational requirements for the senior short program. So we're going to take a look at a senior short program. It starts off, first combination meets neither requirement of a double triple or a triple triple. So it's a single single, both of them are asterisk out. They do not meet the requirement. Looking at example number 2, we have a double flip, double toe. The double, one of the doubles would meet the requirement and needs to be with a triple. So we take out the lesser valued jump, the lesser value being the double toe. That's asterisk. So the skater gets the double flip plus the double toe is asterisk. Example number 3, the single flip plus a double toe. There, obviously, the single flip does not meet the requirement of a double jump plus a triple or a triple triple, so that one is asterisk out. On the next example, the double flip plus double toe. The downgrade is an execution issue. It is not a value issue. So look at the double flip. The double flip is higher in value than a double toe. So the double flip remains there, but because there's no triple as required for the senior short program, the double toe gets asterisk out. On the last example, there's a double flip and then a fall, which would be a double flip plus combo. Next. Let me just make one more comment on that last slide. The ISU is trying not to take an entire combination out. Now, they're trying to give value if part of that combination has met that requirement. They're only singling out the rotational error in the other jump. So they're trying to give the skater as much value for the attempt, but if the other jump did have a rotational error, that is the one that's asked. Now next.
Thank you, Gail. So we're going to continue on with another example here. And this is where, it is very important to consult your well-balanced charts, because we're going to look at the junior men's short program requirement, which is a double triple or triple triple. And notice that's different than the junior ladies short program requirement. So sometimes when we're looking at our protocols, it's important to make sure you remember specifically, what the rules are for the well-balanced requirements per division and per subset. So junior men versus junior ladies, novice men versus novice ladies, and in a free skate program, for instance, they're different. So in the example we have here, with the junior men's short program, the first example shows a double lutz plus double toe. Now clearly, one of those elements is not a triple, so something has to go. And as Gail mentioned before, the lower value will go out. So in this case, the double toe would go out. If the skater executed a single flip plus triple toe, then clearly the single flip is not meeting the requirement, but the triple toe does. So the triple toe gets value, but the single flip is asterisked. The third example, single flip, single toe, clearly neither of those jumps are per requirement, so they both get asterisked. Now if we move on to an intermediate level, again, in the intermediate you have a wide range of options. It's, a double single, a double double, triple single, or triple double. Right, so if a skater performs a single single, the single jump with the lesser value will have no value. So if it's like a single flip, single toe, the single toe wouldn't have a value, but the single flip would, because it can still do like a double single. So that is still partially per requirement. And then, finally, in the last example here, novice, again, just a reminder that the novice requirement would be a double double or a double triple or triple double, whatever you want to call it, right? And this novice skater in this case does, a single double or a double single. Well, then clearly the single jump is not per requirement and therefore has no value. So it's just important to remember to really check your well-balanced requirements of what is allowed in your level at that event. Next slide, please.
Next slide is with jumps, the wrong edge takeoffs. The ISU is probably leading or going towards calling a jump as the exact takeoff edge. But in this interim time right now, we have some new things occurring. That first mark that you see is an attention mark, and that indicates that the takeoff edge is not clear. So it's not clearly on a full correct edge. It's not clear to the callers, and it's probably not clear to the judges. The judges will take another look at that if they see that attention sign. It doesn't receive anything lesser in value as far as the base value, but the judges can reflect that in their GOE. If they feel it really was significant and it had an impact on the overall jump, they may reduce that GOE. If it has a great entrance, great air position, hand over the head, they may be high enough to still stay in the positives, even with an attention. Now, the E, on the other hand, indicates absolutely the wrong takeoff. It's definitely a wrong takeoff edge. There, it is mandatory for the judges to reduce their GOE and be in the negatives. So they must have a negative mark. If there is an E there, it is the wrong takeoff edge. Jumps will receive a lower base value. You'll see that base value for that E indicated in the V1 column of the scale of values. And you have to refer to 1884 because that scale has been somewhat adjusted. So the V1 column is where you will see that E jump will have less base value. Again, the judges will have a negative GOE if an E occurs. Next.
Now sometimes there will be cases when a certain jump will have multiple errors. So those multiple errors will be identified by the technical panel. So a skater might have an E and an under rotate, for example. Both of them are applied to, if both of them are applied to the same jump, the base value will be indicated in the V2 column of the scale of values, and will receive approximately 50% of the value that that jump would have had without those. Next.
Thanks, Philip. And here when we talk about the sequences, you know, the main thing that's new this year is that they're really focusing on the break and clear rhythm, and that's been really emphasized. So let's say there's some kind of a mistake, so you actually end up being a twice step and turn, and it's not a hop, then that could break the rhythm, and it would end the sequence. And therefore, whatever happens after that break doesn't get called. Okay, so that's very important, and the emphasis is a little bit stricter this season. Now, there is an exception, of course, which is for the axle no value scenario. So sometimes, you know, you all just have to have an axle type jump in the program, and let's say, you know, for instance, let's give an example that, you know, a skater tries to do a double sow plus single axle jump sequence. They fall in the double sow, you know, but they get up quickly and they throw in that single axle anyway. So in that case, the call would be, you know, the first jump, which is the double sow, plus axle no value, plus sequence. So, you know, with this call, the axle would count as a required element, but not receive any points. So it would not get any points, but it could still meet the axle requirement, so it would not occupy a box. So in this scenario, they would fulfill the requirement, but does not block a later box. And that's what's important about the jump sequence. So the trick is, if there is a mistake, you get up, and if it's your only axle in the program, try the axle anyway, so at least you get the requirement of the axle done. And I think as a coach, it's important to remember that. Next slide, please.
All right, we thought it important that all coaches be aware that there will be no halfway bonus for the short programs in intermediate and novice. So at the junior and senior level, there is a halfway bonus. Jumps executed after the halfway mark are multiplied by the factor of 1.1. And in the free skates at all levels using the IJS system, we'll have that bonus, the factor 1.1.
Great. Thank you, Dana. And now we're really excited to go over some protocols so you can see some examples of how everything, you know, comes into play. Because I know when you're seeing these sheets for the first time, it's, you know, it's very confusing as a coach of a skater or parent of a skater. You know, it becomes very confusing. So we thought it'd be best to really just look at a couple examples. Gail?
Okay, we're taking a look at the first protocol sheet, which probably, if you're a coach, and I could be real excited about. Double jumps can only be done twice in a program. So if you look at element number 2, we see that double toe, double toe. And then we go down to element number 5. What? Another double toe. That's number 3. That element gets taken out. It gets asterisk. If you go down further and you see element number 9, that's the 4th double toe in that program. So that complete element gets taken out as well with the asterisk. So it's pretty devastating to go beyond that second double jump in the program. So you want to be aware of that, and the ISU definitely is doing this to stop all the double toes in the program. So they want to see variety in the program. They don't want to see the same jump repeated time and time again. Another interesting thing, if you look at number 3, so that's the combination spin, you see the P3, there are 3 positions. So P3, 3 positions, and or 3P, I'm sorry, 3 positions, and it was a level 4. Now comparing that, and you go down to number 10, that flying change combination spin, you don't see any positions there. Something's wrong with the spin. So it's not basic on 2 feet. It's the V1. So you can see that no position was attained, no basic position on either foot or just one. So it has no value. So that's why you don't see the P in there, but the mandatory V1, not basic on 2 feet. Other than that, you know, the under rotation and the downgrade, and always watch your halfway marks and the values for the halfway marks. So always take a look where that applies and make sure that all jumps after the halfway do receive that value. Too bad about that number 9. That could have been fairly significant if the skater had watched that repeat the double toe. Okay, next. One of the things we want to talk about also this season is the new rule for starting position. So each skater must get to that start position for each segment of the competition within 30 seconds after their name is announced. If that time has expired, if you're over 30 seconds, and we've seen that in the last couple of weeks, you get a 1.0 point deduction from your final score. That's significant. That really can change a place. So it's really important that you work with your skater and that they have a really good idea what 30 seconds is from the boards, taking a sip of water, blowing their nose or whatever, and taking that starting position. Because in most arenas, there is not a visible clock, countdown clock to see. It's only in the hands of the referee or the technical accountants. So it's really important that you as a coach really know that rule and that the skater practices and has a really good feel where that 30-second would be. If for some reason you had an extraordinary delay to 60 seconds, whoa, you go over 60 seconds, you're withdrawn from the competition. So that would be extraordinary. It's usually that a skater is not hitting that starting position in the 30 seconds. And it definitely needs to be watched because, as I said, we are seeing it. The only difference here is if you have the first competitor after the warm-up period, let's say after the 5-6 minute warm-up period, that skater gets an extra 30 seconds after he or she's name is announced. The reason for that is kind of a shuffling at that point. As you know, we're closing the gate. We're trying to get skaters off the ice. The tech accountant's making sure they have the right skater on the board. It's time for everybody to get back to their screens. So it's kind of an alert time for the panel and to make sure the ice is clear and to make sure that first skater is not penalized with all that activity around them. So they're given an extra 30 seconds, so technically they have the 60 seconds from the announcement to get to that starting position. But it is only the first competitor after the warm-up group. Everybody else, 30 seconds. 31, 1.0 off the score. Next.
Great. Thank you so much, Gail. And that brings us to the close of our presentation for today. First of all, panelists, I want to, thank you all, Dana and Gail and Libby and Philip, and thank you, Katie, for moderating this. Before we move on to our closing, is there any additional comments or recommendations, for the coaches out there that you'd like to give? I just wanted to open up the space for a quick comment or two.
Well, now that you've asked, I would...
That was not planned, by the way, everybody. I just think, you know what, I'll just open up, just in case, that was not part of the presentation.
You didn't prepare us for that. I would suggest... I would really suggest to stress with skaters to hold their positions, whether they be in difficult variations, whether they be in the 8 revolution feature, whether they be whatever they are striving towards that require a set amount of revolutions, which, let's face it, is just about everything. It would be really in their best interest, and I would highly recommend stressing that to your skaters. So that's my number one comment.
Right, thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Again, I just want to remind everybody that, this webinar will be posted online again. If you missed a part of it, you can go back and watch it again. These are all, along with the other coaches webinars, are on the main, on the members-only website, usfsaonline.org. And for more information, again, visit our coachescommittee.com page. Again, you can type in directly, or if you forget the name, you can always go to the the main usfigureskating.org main page and go into the Coaches Committee tab, or Coaches tab, and scroll down to Coaches Committee. And again, just a reminder to always visit this PSA website at skatepsa.com. And next slide, please. So again, we thank you. I know it's been a very busy and hectic season. We wanted to get the information to you as quickly as we could that would make sense for everybody now that the new rules are in place. And so in conclusion, we wish all of you coaches out there great success this season. We look forward to seeing you at the competitions during this upcoming season. Again, thank you to the panelists for spending their time and expertise sharing their knowledge with all of us. Dana and Gail and Libby and Philip, and thank you again, Katie, for organizing and hosting this for us. And thanks to our friends with the PSA who got the message out there. And thank all of you too for spending your Wednesday evening doing our Webinar Wednesday. And I hope that this has been helpful for you. And again, thank you and good luck. And again, come back and check out the the website, and if there's more questions, we will post it online on that members-only site. With the Q&A will be posted, as well as a repeat of this webinar from tonight. Thank you so much, and have a great night, everyone.